Okay, beautiful. The connection with the Jamaicans, that's been so heavy to me, man, because if that information is new to me for sure, and I just kind of want you to emphasize on that, just a little bit. How do we know that the Celts, or those are Irish, were from the Northern Kingdom? What information can you provide to help us with that?
Well, it's very, very difficult to say if they were exactly all from the Northern Kingdom, or if they were from the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom, because it was such a mixture of the Northern and Southern tribes into Scotland and Ireland and Wales. And that's why I wanted to go over the basic foundation first of how we actually got up into Europe. Because it's easy to say, hey, look, the Jamaicans, they're descendants from black nobility from Ireland. They're Irish descent. It's easy to say that, but you have to prove it.
Right.
Because if you look at the 12 tribes chart, they say the Jamaicans are who on the 12 tribes chart? Benjamin. All right. So it's how do you know they're from Benjamin? You see what I'm saying? How did they get there? Because most of us think that the Jamaicans got to Jamaica through the transatlantic slave trade.
Right.
And most of us think that we Hebrews got to the Americas and the Caribbean from the west coast of Africa.
Right.
But most of our people came from Europe, not the west coast of Africa. Most of our people that came to the New World and to the Caribbean came from France, Spain, and England, and some from Germany.
Wait a minute, hold on, Ephraim. What you're saying, man, that's heavy, man. That's like a game changer. You know what I mean? And so that right there, bro, that's going to be the challenge. It's first of all, it's going to be new for our people to hear. That's just something that's just like out of whack. You know what I mean? And so our people, they you got to prove everything. So you have a job on your hand, brother. You know what I mean? For even getting, I applaud you for even going into this. But I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna sit back and let you do your thing. I just have to say that.
Right. And that's why I said I don't even want to even touch that right now, because I want to kind of give a foundation like we did last week, showing how Judah actually went up into Spain, France, Scotland, England, and Wales, and how Judah actually were descendants of Judah actually founded the colonies of Troy, and how the descendants went back and forth between Troy, which is located in Turkey, because they was in a battle with the Greeks, and how descendants from Judah actually went from Wales and Scotland over to assist their brethren and brought them back over to England. So we went over that last week. So what I wanted to go over this evening is the Northern Kingdom, because a lot of us don't know what happened to the Northern Kingdom. We focus so much on the Southern Kingdom, but what happened to the Northern Kingdom and where they actually went to? And I think that's really important, because the curses apply to the Northern and the Southern Kingdoms. It applies to all Israel. And once you see, after I go over this information, then you're going to see later on how both the Northern and the Southern Kingdoms were brought over on slave ships to the New World together. Hey, did you just hear what I just said?
Yeah, that's heavy.
Shalom.
All right. Shalom.
Yes, you were saying that some of the Judah went up into France and Spain and different places.
What I was saying when I went over last week was that there was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, because I just wanted to because my great grandfather was sold as a slave from France. He was brought over here, and he ended up, I think, in Mississippi or Louisiana.
Okay, so that actually makes sense because a lot of the Israelite nobility ended up down into Louisiana and those areas actually from France.
Yeah.
They actually ended up over there from France. As a matter of fact, she was a
so-called Native American Indian, and she was in that area too, down in Mississippi, Louisiana.
And and I don't mean to get off topic because this is a whole nother subject which you're touching on right now. That was one way that, and I'm just going to be straight honest with you. It was the Edomites in the Catholic Church that hid our people that were already over here in the original 13 colonies, and the way they hid our people was just to lump us together with the North American Indians, because the word Indian and Roman actually means black.
Yeah.
So what they did was a lot of English and French nobility that came over to the New World owning plantations. And that's another topic, too, where plantations actually started. They didn't start here in the Americas. They actually started up there in Ireland. And black nobility owned the plantations and the lands over here in the New World. And when these, and I want to use my word, when these Puritans and these Anglo-Protestants start coming into the New World with the help of the Habsburg royal family out of Germany, which was backed by the Catholic Church, they start taking the lands from the black nobility and they started enslaving them. And a lot of our people wind up going and uniting together with the Indians that were already here. And that's how they hit our numbers. But that's another subject for a whole nother topic. Anybody else got any questions? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get this started. And tonight we're really going to discuss the Northern Kingdom and how the Northern Kingdom wind up going into Europe. Okay? All right, you guys ready?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, now, a lot of the current European nations today, I don't know if any of you ever heard of how they have claimed lineage to the house of Israel. Anybody familiar with that? When they're saying like Denmark is the tribe of Dan, and England is from Judah, and America is from Ephraim. You heard of all that information before, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. Well, actually, that information that they're bringing forth, they think that information applies to them, but it actually applies to us. Okay? So the actual first migrations up into Europe started 900 years before the house of Israel went into the Assyrian captivity. And there's the story of the Danites from the tribe of Dan and the Zarites from the tribe of Judah who escaped from Egypt prior to the exodus of Moshe. It's recorded by Egyptian and Greek historians that regarded the Israelites, some of the Israelites, either escaping or driven out of Egypt, which occurred prior to the exodus. Now, there's a record speak of a man named Cadmus and Danites fleeing Egypt with their followers and landing in Greek lands. Danites of the tribe of Dan landed at the city of Argos. Anybody familiar with the city of Argos? pretty sure you've heard of Argos and like the Clash of the Titans, those Hollywood movies that come on television.
Yeah.
All right, Argos is a city. Hold on, bear with me 1 second. It's an ancient city in Greece. All right? It was once considered one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. And Argos, all right, Danites from the tribe of Dan actually gained control of the city of Argos. Then the Greek historians relate to other events taken from the Egyptian history, which shows colonies springing up around the eastern Mediterranean. It says that the city-states of Argos and Athens were founded, and the land allotted to the tribe of Dan was the coast of the Mediterranean, each obviously to accommodate their ships, because history has shown and documented that the tribe of Dan were a seafaring people. And wherever these Danites settled, they included Dan in the name of their cities, rivers, and countries. Now, Danites, who overthrew Argos, was known as the leader of the tribe of Dan. And if you read in the scriptures in Genesis chapter 49, verse 16, it says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse's heel, so that his rider shall fall backwards. Now, wherever these Danites went, and remember, this portion of Dan went up into Greece before the Exodus. And this occurred 900 years before the northern kingdom went into the Assyrian captivity. But wherever these Danites went, on their flags and emblems, they had the symbol of the snake and the eagle. And often these two symbols were combined. So that snake symbol was a calling card for the tribe of Dan.
Brother, can I cut you off for 1 second?
Yes, go ahead.
So you're saying, because typically we taught that, you know, the northern tribes pretty much, you know, quote unquote disappeared around 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. But you're saying prior to that, they had already taken off.
Yes, when we were in Egypt.
Okay. So that's.
And I'm going to give you some scriptures to prove it too.
Okay.
And remember, because going off of these texts and stuff, and what I've been finding out when I go and I research this information, a lot of times the information has been put out in such a way that it includes a lot of the Caucasians that was from the Caucasus mountain regions, where you can see them trying to include themselves in this. And that is designed to make people believe that the Ashkenazi Jews are of the chosen lineage. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. Okay.
Because we know in the Caucasus mountain region, that was near the Khazarian Empire. And everybody should be familiar with the Khazarian Empire, correct?
Yep, I agree. So that multitude that left in 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, probably wasn't as big as, we once were taught.
Well, you know what? I can't say that. That's one thing I can't say. All I know, there were remnants of Judah and there were remnants of the tribe of Dan that went up into Europe prior to us leaving out of the Egyptian captivity.
Okay, continue.
Right, so I'm going to go ahead and continue. All right, so what we're seeing right now is that one of the calling cards or one of the markers from the tribe of Dan was their symbols and their flags and their emblems contain a snake. Sometimes it contained an eagle, but often it was combining both, the snake and the eagle. and these symbols became prominent in portions of Greece. These symbols also appear on ancient coins and emblems from that era and location. So now we can see that many of the tribe of Dan escaped Egypt with either the descendants of Zara, which we know that Zara was one of Judah's sons, or they left independently of them. Either way, history shows many events of the Danaan in Greece and the independent city-states were of Danaan and Zarite origin, including Sparta. Now, is anybody familiar with the Spartans? Or has anybody ever seen that movie 300? Yes. Okay. Now, the Spartans, and I guess I'll just go over this information. I'll let you come to your own conclusion with this. All right? In the book of Maccabees, 1 Maccabees chapter 12, verse 20. Now, remember I said that the independent city-states were of Dan, and the Zarite origin, which means you got a tribe from the northern kingdom and you got a tribe from the southern kingdom that were independent city-states in Greece. And they were including the city-state of Sparta. So in the book of Maccabees, 1 Maccabees chapter 12, verse 20, and I'm going to read it, and it says, "And this is the copy of the letters which Arius sent, Arius, king of the Lacedaemonians, to Arianus, the high priest, greeting. It is found in writing that the Lacedaemonians and Jews are brethren, and that they are of the stock of Abraham." So who are the Lacedaemonians? Anybody remember in the movie 300, you saw the Spartans on their shields. They had the letter L on their shields.
Right.
Anybody remember that?
Yes, done.
Okay, all right. So let me go over what actually Lacedonia is. Hold on for a second. Let me put you on pause. Let me put you on mute. Hold on for 1 second.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in for the Shabbat class. Usually we read Torah, and the brother just have this information that he wants to bring out for this pretty much this month. And I just thank everybody for giving us opportunity. This information, he's bringing it out for you can take it and do your own research with it. Never take anything, as we say, as gold. This is for you to do your own research. We're just leaving a foundation for you. Okay, so you can have and understand and do your own research, all right? Everything is about research.
All right.
We hope that you guys have questions. Okay. Now, go ahead. I'm just saying, I hope everybody have questions at the end. Okay? Voila. Go ahead, crew.
All right. So, lastly, and I'm going to put this word in the chat group. Laciona, or in the King James Version.
Oh, you sound muffled.
I'm sorry. What about now? Can you hear me? That sound better? I still sound muffled?
Okay, now you sound good.
Okay, all right. All right, so if you read in the book of Maccabees in the King James Version, you're going to see this word right here that I just put in there, Lacedaemia, all right? Now, Lacedaemia is a region in southeastern part of the Peloponnese Peninsula. It is the administrative capital of Sparta. All right? So basically, when you're reading in the book of Maccabees, and it's 1 Maccabees chapter 12, verse 20, a letter was sent
from Arianus sent to King Arius of the Lacedaemonians to Arianus the high priest. And it is found in the writing that the Lacedaemonians and Jews are brethren, and that they are the stock of Abraham. So it's basically saying, Arius, king of the Spartans, to Arianus the high priest, greetings. It is found that the Spartans and Jews are brethren. Now, so the question is, if you're talking about descendants from Judah, then these Spartans must be from what kingdom? Or they must be from the northern kingdom, or one of the northern tribes, or the tribe of Benjamin, or from Levi. Everybody agree?
Mm-hmm.
Con.
Right.
Can you speak a little louder in the mic, Ephraim?
Right, hold on. All right, is this better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Now, all right, so I'm going to pick up at Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 17. All right. Now, it says, Judah and the land of Israel, they were thy merchants. They traded in thy market wheat of minnith and panag, and honey and oil and balm. Verse 19, Dan also and Javan, going to and fro, occupy in thy fairs. Bright irons, cassia, calamus were in thy markets. So this verse 19 is showing that the tribe of Dan and the tribe of Javan, which was from the seed of Japheth, were together trading with Judah and the northern kingdom.
Hold on, Ephraim.
Everybody see that?
It's logged on to Facebook. Can you mute your mic, please? Okay, continue.
Anybody got any questions on that? Because what I just gave you was something heavy. I don't think you quite understand what I just said.
Yeah, can you repeat that one more time, please?
All right. So this is Ezekiel 27 and 17. Judah and the land of Israel, they were thy merchants. They traded in thy market wheat of minnith and panag and honey and oil and balm. Verse 19, Dan also and Javan, going to and full, occupied in thy fairs. Bright iron, cassia, and calamus were in thy markets. So verse 19 is confirming that there were descendants from the tribe of Dan who was among those from Javan, trading and selling to Judah and the land of Israel. And Javan is actually located, their territory is ancient Greece.
Wow.
So that's a confirmation that there's a big possibility that these Spartans actually possibly came from the tribe of Dan. Everybody see that? I'm not saying they're from the tribe of Dan, but I'm saying there were Danites in that area.
Got you.
That's something I've heard before.
You've heard that before?
Yes. I heard the tribe of Dan was the Spartans, the Sparta, or people from 300 that they left off from Israel separately a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Which now makes sense to be before they came out of Egypt. So that
Right.
makes sense.
Right. Now, remember, everything that we're doing right now is giving you a foundation of what some of our forefathers from the Northern Kingdom, how they ended up in Europe. That's what I'm focusing on tonight. All right. So last week we went over which one of Judah's descendants actually founded the city of Troy. And Troy is actually located in modern-day Turkey. And we know that the Trojan Wars were fought between the peoples of Troy and Greece. But among those Grecians were actually Israelites. So we had Israelites fighting other Israelites. And it's a possibility they may not have known of their common heritage. All right, anybody got any questions? All right. Now, let me go back up. Bear with me 1 sec. All right, so there was also another Israelite by the name of Cadmus. Anybody familiar with Cadmus?
No.
Say that again?
Cadmus, there was another Israelite by the name of Cadmus, Cadmus. He was the founder and the first king of Thebes. Cadmus was the first Greek hero alongside Perseus and Bellerophon, the greatest hero and slayer of monsters. So and it's funny that a lot of these Greeks, and I believe that these Greeks were from the sons of Japheth. When they refer to Israelites, they had a habit of creating mythology out of Israelites that founded some of their cities and became kings among them. All right. So Cadmus was another Israelite who had Phoenician connection, and he was the one who established the city-state of Thebes in Greece. And Ak, you was telling me something about, I believe you had heard something about some Danites that was possibly Phoenicians.
Yep, indeed.
Okay.
That could have been another name that we went under. We went under the name Phoenicians, but not for sure what tribe or whatever.
Right. But historians are saying this guy Cadmus, who was from, he was a Danite. He was the one that founded the city-state of Thebes, and also he has Phoenician connections. And we know the Danites were seafaring people, so that would kind of make sense that this guy was possibly, a Danite, because those areas of Javan's territory where Athens and Thebes and Argos and all those places, those are a bunch of islands. And the only way you can get to these places is by ship. All right, so there's also another place called Colchis, and the spelling of that name, and I'll put it in the chat group. And let me put in the chat group the map showing the area where they primarily migrated. Colchis, a colony on the Black Sea coast, was apparently settled by Israelites, and they performed the acts of circumcision among their young, which is another kolakah, which is another marker of descendants of the tribes of descendants of Abraham, because that was a covenant that Abraham had. Now, it's not exactly saying what tribe, and all of this information I'm giving you right now is pre-Northern Kingdom captivity. Okay? So I'm giving you a foundation of Israelites already in that area of Turkey and Greece and around the Black Sea area. All right, now, Okay. All right. Athens was founded by King Thesprops, who some writers stated was Calco, the son of Zaria. We went over that last week. And a Judite. Calco is also credited with settling a colony in Ulster, Ireland, and the origins of the Irish king. That's very important. The Irish kings in the colony of Ulster. Calco is a descendant of Judah. All right. So Judah, that's another marker, an indicator right there that you had descendants of Judah that was actually up in Ireland. That's why I was telling you, it's very, very difficult to say if these Irish were all Judites or they were from the northern kingdom, because I'm going to show you later on how some of these northern kingdoms winded up in Britain and Scotland and Ireland also.
Okay.
Right, his brother, Darda, is credited with going on to Troy. All right, now, there's an ancient Irish legend that tells of 5 invasions, all of which came from the regions of Greece. All right, and we know that you had some settlers in Greece that were from the tribe of Judah, and I've already started showing you had some that was from the tribe of Dan. The first 3 of the 5 invasions failed, but the 4th one was successful by a people called, and I think it's Toritha de Danaan. And then Danaan means Dan, who were deeply entrenched in ancient Irish history for many years. This name is translated into the tribe of Dan, and who were of the house of Israel, but not the lost tribe. They were separated from the rest of the tribe of Dan when they escaped Egypt before the Exodus. The 5th invasion of Ireland was by a people called Milesians, and I'm going to put that name in the group too so you can use it if you want to go and research who these people are. All right, so these Milesians were the final race to settle in Ireland. They represented the Irish people. The Milesians are Gauls who sailed to Ireland from Hispaniola. And I'll go into that later on. But basically they said they were of Greek heritage, but also of the tribe of Judah. It was the Milesian line of the Greeks that the ancient Irish kings, through Calco, began to rule the kingdom of Ulster. The Irish acknowledged that the island was colonized by Greeks. And does everybody remember the symbol of the kingdom of Ulster? The scarlet red hand. Everybody remember that from last week?
Lion, right?
Yes,
right.
I definitely remember that.
All right. Anybody need me to post that back in the group?
Yeah, I'll post it up. And then also, was that the Ephraim was what they call that the sign of the saints, the Dele Flu or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I'll post both of them.
All right. Okay. So all the information I just went over was pre-Assyrian captivity of the northern kingdom. And let me also post this in the group too. And this is pretty good to know. All right. So what I just posted in the group is basically Judah and the royal house of Zara, Judah, and the royal house of Perez, Judah. All right. You're going to see that King David came from the lineage of Perez. And that you're going to see the royal house of Zaria, the Scarlet Court. These are where the Trojan kings came from, the Milesian kings, the Frankish king, the Scandinavian kings, and the kings of Ireland. That's going to be important later on. So that's just showing the northern kingdom up in Ireland and these other places. All right, so now I'm going to go into the Assyrian captivity. All right, so I'm going to start off the house of Israel in Europe. The wickedness and abomination of the kings of the house of Israel and the people continued for many years until the prophecy to Jeroboam was fulfilled. What are the areas of the Assyrian Empire where they migrated to? All right, so the Medes were a group of people within the Assyrian Empire at the time when the house of Israel went into captivity. The cities of the Medes as one of the two buffer zones where some of the 10 tribes were placed. So what the Assyrians did was they created these buffer zones where they dispersed our people at. And King Darius, who was he ordered a record of all of his accomplishments to be established on the rock cliffs of the Zagros Mountains, which is located in modern-day Iran. And that's where they got a lot of this information from. It's very, very detailed. All right, so one of the things that is documented in 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 16, was that when the Israelites in the camp heard that Zemara had plotted against the king and murdered him, they proclaimed Omari, the commander of the army, king over Israel that very day. They're in the camp. I'm going down to 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 25. But Omari did evil in the eyes of the Most High and sinned more than all the other kings before him. He followed completely the ways of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, committing the same sin Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit, so that there arose the anger of the Most High of Israel by their worthless idols. Verse 29, in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, son of Omari, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Samaria over Israel 22 years. Ahab, son of Omari, did more evil in the eyes of the Most High than any of those before him. Now, if you recall, the king of Omari was one of the most famous kings of the house of Israel. The Assyrians knew the house of Israel as the house of Omari, or in their language, Bet Kumari. And I'm going to put this name in there in the chat group. And this is the name that the Assyrians knew. Omari in English is pronounced as Gomeri, and I'm going to put this name in there. And please forgive me for butchering some of these names. All right, so in various written records, and this is the Persian records, this is the different names that Omari, or O-M-R-I, one of the kings of Israel, is known by. And this is important because what you're going to find out is the captivity started, and after the captivity was over with and the northern kingdom started to migrate, that when they came across different peoples, there were different dialects, and the names started to be pronounced differently, and they started to change. All right, so when we get up to the Babylonian captivity, in the Babylonian language, they are called the Sumerian. And this is how you pronounce that name. And I'm going to put it in the group. So now we've gone from the Assyrians to the Babylonians. And this is the name. Okay, so you got all these different names that I just put in the group, and these names are different dialects and pronunciations of this king of Israel and his name, and I'm putting in the group right there. This is the king of Israel's name. So you can see, yeah, go ahead.
This king Gomer, he was in where again? Can you repeat that? What country?
This was the Israelite king. This king was of the house of Israel.
Right. Okay.
All right. So the Assyrians knew this king. All right. So this name I'm putting in right now, this is the name that the Assyrians knew this king from the house of Israel from. Bet Kumri, Khumri. That's who the Assyrians knew him by. All right. Now, after the captivity was over with, they start changing the name to Ghomri. All right. And then it became Gamri. So you have a lot of variations of the original king's name. In the Babylonian language, this Gimri, Gomari, which was the king of Israel, they just pronounced his name differently. The Babylonians changed it all together to the Cimmerians, so Cimmerians. That's who the Babylonians knew the house of Israel by. Everybody understand that? So these different names were the different names that they called the house of Israel that went into that captivity. Anybody got any questions so far? So I know it's a lot of information. All right. Now, the Greeks refer to a people called the Celts. They refer to this people, and I'm going to put this name right here in the group. So now we're getting up into the Greeks identifying these people. So the Greeks referred to a people that later became known as the Celts or Celts. They called them the Keltoi and the Galatai, Galatai. This is what the Greeks started calling them. And these people lived in the regions of Ashraf near the Danube River around 600 BC. And everybody's familiar with the scriptures about Asherah?
Yeah. Now, I want to ask this question now.
Mm-hmm.
Asherah, where is this place is at? Please, can you be a little bit more detailed if you have the information where this place is at?
I'm going to put it in the group right now. That's a map. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
This map has the migrations of the Cimmerians, how they went around, and these same areas where they went around. This is where the areas where the tribe of Dan was located, near where Troy was located, and then Ashraf is up there in Javan's lot, according to the maps. Everybody see that?
Right.
These are some of the areas where the northern kingdom wind up setting up settlements.
Now, can I say this real quick?
Yes.
This Assyria is what brothers usually, and while a lot of the cap doctrine say, which is America.
Right.
So now we're seeing that it's doctrine, and it's not history. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the difference.
Right.
And when you look, Esdras. I'm sorry, Esdras.
Yep.
That Esdras had rode on horseback to the northern kingdom, which this makes a lot of sense because I couldn't see Esdras riding all the way over to the America. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
On a horse,
right?
To deliver letters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the difference than doctrine. You know what I mean? Philosophy doctrine and actual history, stuff lined up with history which just makes sense. So I just wanted to put that out for brothers and sisters.
No, I'm glad that you said that because that makes a lot of sense. Because I've heard that same doctrine before that Asherah was supposedly America, and it took them, what was it, a year and a half or a year to get there?
Right.
You know, but you're talking about people that picked up, they moved, they settled for a little place, and they kept doing the same thing. until they actually got up into that area.
Absolutely.
Now the Northern Kingdom, you got to remember, I'm focusing on the Northern Kingdom that went up into Europe. I'm not focusing on the ones that went to Iran and out to Asia, out towards China, because we know that there are Israelites that went out there also. Okay? So that's a whole nother story. I hadn't even looked into that. What I'm focusing on right now is the ones that went up into Europe. So we're starting to see that the Northern Kingdom is starting to migrate up into Turkey. They're starting to migrate into those coastal areas of the Black Sea, the Georgia area, the southern Russia area, and ultimately around to where Romania and those areas of Albania.
Now the question is,
yes.
I'm sorry, but the question is, who are the Celts? Who are the Celts?
Yeah, I'm going to go into that. Okay. Because now we're fast forwarding up to 100 BC, and now the Greek historians are starting to refer to Celts as Gauls around 100 BC. All right? But they were originally called Cimmerians, or Cimmerians, okay, which was also known as Gomori, or the house Omar, or the house of Israel. Everybody see that?
I have a question.
Yes.
Are these the same Cimmerians where we get the Cimmerian tablets and the cuneiform writing, or is this just a similarity in name?
I believe it's just a similarity in name, but I'm not exactly 100% sure.
No, it is. It's a similarity in name. The Sumerians was well before them, so it's not the same people.
Okay, thank you. That's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, what I just put in the group is the migration where these Cimmerians actually started to migrate up into Central Europe. Okay? And if you look at the map of the settlements, you're starting to see those areas of Georgia. Matter of fact, the Crimean Peninsula, if anybody's ever heard of that. Matter of fact, Russia just took that part from the Ukraine not too long ago. They have a big naval base there that was actually named after these Northern Kingdom people, the Cimmerians. All right? And then you're starting to see them migrate down into Ashraf and then down up into Hungary, Romania areas, Yugoslavia, those areas right there. Now, later on, when we start doing another teaching, you're going to start seeing, if you ever heard of the Austria-Hungary Empire, those were nobility. Those were Israelite nobility families that were eventually conquered and taken over, and someone else assumed their identity. Okay? But we had Israelite nobility all in Eastern Europe, all in Russia also. And that's where they came from.
Question.
All right. Yes.
So, and I'm reason I'm asking questions because I want to know. So
right.
So when the scripture talks about us, us being kings,
yeah,
we're seeing that we're seeing that we're being not only like the kingdom of which is in Israel, but wherever we went, we established kingship. If that makes any sense?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, because what I'm seeing now is that Europe was actually our continent.
Okay.
We ruled Europe. We were the greatest warriors and greatest soldiers in world history by far. Nobody else could come close to us. The soldiers that the Romans used were a lot of Israelites that lost that identity and lost that heritage. So, and you know, after Rome fell, we took over. You know, they like to talk about the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, and said the reason why they called it the Dark Ages is because education and all this other stuff stopped. But that's when the greatest castles and architectures sprung up in Europe. All the castles were built in anywhere from the 800s on up to the 1400s, well before the Renaissance period. Because they say the Renaissance period was the age of enlightenment, the age of educational expression and all. That's a lie. The Renaissance was wiping us out. That's what the Renaissance period was all about. It was hiding us. But that's a subject for another story. So, all right. So now we got to. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So now we've gotten to a period to where the Northern Kingdom is starting to be called Celts and Gauls. Have anybody ever seen that TV show that used to come on, Spartacus? It was supposed to be a Thracian, and the guy that was one of the gladiators' names was Crixus, and he was a Gaul.
Yeah.
And he was the champion. He was a champion gladiator. These Gauls were Israelites. These Gauls were from the Northern Kingdom. These Celts were from the Northern Kingdom. All right? Go ahead.
This could be so hard for people to get used to because we've been everything been so whitewashed. You know what I mean?
You're exactly right.
History, this whole period. Although we are aware of it, it's still hard because we used to seeing Europeans play all these roles. They everybody, even Tom Cruise was the last samurai. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So it's not that it's hard to believe. It's like another smack in the face.
Right.
But
it was
waking up to understand that we're Hebrews.
Right. But that was the most
now we
way
hear
of hiding
disinformation.
And you have to process.
Sorry, go ahead, Art.
No, but you're exactly right. I mean, this is the Most High's way of punishing us and causing us to forget who we were. Because when you think of the Boston Celtics, not realizing these Celts or these Celtics that they're talking about was actually our people. Because when you think about these Celts, go ahead.
That's what I was about to mention and ask, because I've been doing research on Vikings and Celtics, and they got this thing going on they're doing this research on this island for some old stuff, and they found some things that like these old ancient Hebrew writings that they found up in these areas, and they are calling Vikings, and the time period is the same period, but they try to put it on two different people.
Right.
So I've been looking at a lot of stuff and looking at this timeline of our people coming over into this land through Ireland, Scotland, since I found out all that information. And I've been wondering about these Celtics, and I see how far back they go.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, and I always wondered, were these Israelites that came, the ones that was coming to America in the 800s and stuff like that?
Yep. That's exactly who they were.
Thank you.
Because they're saying that the Celtics became the controlling power in Europe for 500 years before being called Gauls. If you do your research on the Celtics, they actually had a kingdom in France. And then later on, this kingdom became known, or they became known as the Gauls. And they were in France and the German areas.
That's something I know about. Okay, thank you. That's what's up.
All right, so it says, you may recall that France is called Gaul due to the incursions of the Celts and Gauls into the area, even into Spain. So you're having Northern Kingdom incursions into the areas of Germany, France, and Spain. And you remember from last week, we already had people from the tribe of Judah in Spain and France also. All right. So and I'm going to go back to the Assyrians again. All right, so the Assyrians was populated by the Gomara, Gimira, which is a variation of King Omar or the House of Israel, who later discarded that name and preferred a name corresponding to their ancestor Isaac. So you're starting to have portions of the northern kingdom starting to revert back to the name of their ancestor Isaac. One of the Assyrian kings referred to them as Iskusa. All right. Now, one of the Assyrian kings referred to them as Iskusa, derived from Isaac and from Isaaca, and from which Scythian name evolved. Now, this Scythians, I do not believe that the Scythians were Israelites. I believe that these Scythians were actually Caucasians. And these Scythians primarily lived around the Caucasus mountain areas. We were on the outskirts around the Black Sea, but these Scythians primarily were in the Caucasus mountain area. I believe they were Caucasians that came up from India. And these were the Albanos that migrated up to Central Asia and then ultimately to the Caucasus mountain area. Now, I think there's a possibility that some from the northern kingdom actually intermarried with them. But I do not believe that the Scythians were from the northern kingdom. That's just my own opinion from everything that I've been finding out so far. All right, so some of the other names that they use are the variations of Isaac's sons, which finally became known as the Saxons, but were called Gauls by the Romans. So now you're starting to see this name Saxons come into play. And I'm going to post this in here also. All right, the Saxons near the Baltic Sea area crossed over and settled in Scandinavia. So now we're starting to see Israelites that were called Saxons start to migrate up into the Scandinavian area. And everybody familiar with the Scandinavian areas are, correct? Norway, Sweden, those areas up there. Those are the areas where the Vikings came from. And I just put a map in there with some of the different tribes in the chat group. All right, so before I go, anybody got any questions so far?
I don't know everybody speak at one time. If you have a
I know it's a lot of information, man. This is something totally different than we did last week because we get into some names that we have always thought of as being Caucasian tribes. So I know what I'm giving you right now is a shock to the system.
Isn't this name Iberians another version of the word Hebrews?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And are you familiar with Iberians?
Yes.
That's where Calco and them actually went up into. That's the area where Calco and them went into. After the Calco and Scotia. Calco and Scotia. Galatia.
So that's where Nova Scotia comes from.
Right. Well, actually, Scotia, Scotland. That's what Scotland is named after, the Egyptian princess, who was Pharaoh's daughter, who married Galatia, who was a descendant of Calco. Mm-hmm. Right,
okay.
They went up into those areas. And then they went up, matter of fact, they went up into France, and then they went up into Hyberland or Heberland. Hebrew
land.
Land.
Hebrew land, right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All right, so now I'm going to give you some other names that the Northern Kingdom was called in Europe. All right? Now, these Germanii evolved into individual groups. All right? The Germanii which we saw where the Assyrians was calling them that name, a variation of Omri. All right. So they evolved into individual groups called the Angles, Jutes, Frisians, Picts, and Saxons. Those tribes united. Okay? You see the Angles, they were the first ones to start going up into Britain. Those are the first of the northern kingdom that started going up into Britain. And then eventually you start having the Saxons go up into Britain. And that's where you get the name Angelic Sons of Isaac, or Anglo-Saxons. That's where that name comes from.
Now, that's what the names they claim, the pure people, the original people, even the neo-Nazi, they want to claim to be Anglo-Saxon or the original people of that land, but in all actuality, they claiming to be black people.
Right. But the question is, when did they now the question is, when did they start calling themselves Anglo-Saxons? Do you know?
No, I don't.
They didn't start calling themselves Anglo-Saxons until they got to the New World. And they were white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. These were the people that helped overthrow the House of Stuart, or the black nobility kings in England.
That's where that name means something.
Right. So they took on that name.
Wow.
But that was also a way that they tried to whitewash the history.
Wow.
But they didn't start calling themselves that term until the 19th century.
Ephraim.
Yeah.
If I could add something to what I posted was what they call the fleur de lis, which is actually a mandrake. It's a flower that was grown, and that flower belonged to Rachel, which belongs to Joseph. And you can actually read that. That was a signet that our people carried with them into Europe, and that was the signet. That was the signet that you see on the royal banner, where you see the red hand, or the red lion, and you see the mandrake flower. And if I could I read that? Can I read that scripture real quick so brothers can understand where that signet came from? All right. I'm going to go to Genesis 30 and 14 to 16. All right, I'm going to read this. It says, "And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes." This is that signet you're seeing on the flag, or we just posted, in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Give me, I pray thee, of thy sons mandrakes." And she said unto her, "It is a small matter that thou hast taken my husband. And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrake also?" And Rachel said, "Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrake." So it was not that it was a trade, but it was almost like a trade. So that mandrake was a signet for the house of Joseph, which became Ephraim, who became the firstborn son, right? And so that signet was carried away from this time all the way up till Europe. And this is how we understand and know who was Ephraim. Who was Ephraim? Meaning those of the northern kingdom, because that signet stuck with them. And so I just wanted to show that, because you showed the red hand, the red banner, and connected it with the scriptures, right? So I wanted to connect the mandrake flower to the sons of Joseph or Ephraim, or Joseph himself.
Cool, man. Appreciate that. I need to get that from you.
I'll put the scripture in the box so brothers and sisters can see it. And also, the mandrake, this was actually the reason why she was taking it, because it's an aphrodisiac. It was a potent that gave sexual desires. It made you want to have sex. That's why that's one of the reasons why she was taking it from, taking it for.
Okay. All right. So I just posted in the group a list of names that the house of Israel was actually called after they went into the Assyrian captivity. So I put that in the group so you can see it. And one of the names I want you to pay attention to is and I posted that last day, Samri. And these Samris claim to be descendants of the lost tribe of the house of Israel, and they were located in Wales. All right? And Wales, of course, we know is in Britain. And if that's the case, then we have another of the northern kingdom that went up into Britain. So remember, Ak, I was telling you, it's hard to say, man, with these Jamaicans, if all of them were from the northern kingdom or if they were from the southern kingdom, because we have northern and southern kingdoms that wind up going into Britain.
And even with that, they were actually intermarrying. Those two that when kingship, they were intermarrying at one point, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
The kings from Ireland, the kings from Wales, or the Brits. They was okay.
Right. So what wound up happening is that you had Ireland, Scotland, and Wales in England name one king. And then these kings will wind up marrying their cousins that were from like the French kingdoms or the German kingdoms or the Spanish kingdoms. So they all knew that they were of Israelite nobility. And what they would do is marry each other's cousins to keep that royal bloodline going. But like I said, that's another topic. So I just wanted to put that out there.
So, and also, this is one of the reasons why we still carry, so we can say that some of the names like Williams and McFarren and all these names wasn't names that we adopted from our slave master. These were names that actually we were brought over from Ireland and Europe from. We had these names, a royalty already on us. You understand what I'm saying? We can't say that, right? We can't infer that. Right. So a lot of the times we thought the names was given to us by our slave masters, but these names was actually royal names like Williams and, MacArthur's and whatever it may have been, were actually names that we had coming from Europe. That's deep.
Right.
I want to add something to this because I sent you the mandrake flower, and you see what it's talked about the slave, how they were branding that segment on the slaves, right? We were looking at that. So it's almost like they were stamping them, showing that this, we know who you are, and this is your seal. It's weird. It's almost saying like, this is your seal, we know who you are, and they were branding the slaves with the mandrake flower on them. So that information is actually, those who want to know, that information is actually on the picture, the one I put in the post, and it's telling you what that segment was used for when they were transferring or while they were in slavery. Very deep information, very good information.
All right, so I'm going to go back again to the Cimmerians. All right, let's just give you a little history. The Cimmerians were pushed into areas of Turkey by about 700 BC, which means that the house of Israel was deported to Assyria in the years 745 BC to 721 BC. All right, so 21 years later, they were pushed into central Turkey. All right, this is a relatively short time before they begin to migrate. They occupied central Turkey for many years before being driven westward and then northward around the Black Sea area of Ashraf, which was about 525 BC. the Cimmerians were forced to totally leave Ashraf in two groups by 500 BC. One group went southward of the Carpathian Mountains. They became known as the Celts, who the Romans called Gauls. All right? That was the first group. The second group wound up going into Central Europe, and they occupied areas of northern Italy, Switzerland, western France, and southern Germany at about 500 BC. I'm sorry. The other group departed northwest of the Carpathian Mountains, and they were known as the Cimbri. They eventually occupied northern Germany, Holland, Belgium from about 500 BC to 300 BC. And at this time, they were no longer recognized by these names. The Romans referred to each of these groups by the other's names. They called Gauls Cimbres and Cimbres as Gauls. Basically, they were two separate groups of people with the same original names. All right? So the Celts and the Gauls grew in number and might in Central Europe. They began to expand in all directions. They pushed as far as southern Italy before Rome became a powerful nation. And remember, there was a portion of Edom that was in Rome or the Italian peninsula also. Everybody familiar with the story of Zepho? Or Zepho?
Absolutely.
One of Edom's, yeah.
Amalek,
all right.
Edom's line, yep.
All right. So they even pushed eastward into back. As a matter of fact, these Celts and Gauls actually eventually pushed back eastward into central Turkey, where they established the region, where they established themselves in the region known as Galatia. That's who Paul wrote the letters of Galatians to. He wrote the letter to these Gauls. Everybody just understand what I just said?
Man, no, say that again now.
All right. So these Gauls, which were from the northern kingdom, remember they were pushed out of Turkey. They were pushed into southern, central, and northern Europe. But later on, they became a power in Central Europe. They pushed down as far as southern Italy before Rome became a powerful nation. They pushed back east, back into central Turkey, where they established themselves in a region known as Galatia. That's who Paul wrote the letters of the Galatians to.
Wow.
These Galatians were actually Gauls.
That's heavy, man. That's heavy.
Mm-hmm. I recognize that when you said that name earlier. I'm like, I bet you know the Galatians right there. Yep.
All right. So these Celts and Gauls continue remaining in Central Europe. They were known as marauders and warlike by the Romans. They harassed the Romans for years. They entered into the British Isles and France during the 4th century BC. Rome eventually defeated them in South Central Europe around 100 BC. Large numbers of Celts and Gauls continued to migrate northward and westward into Britain, Ireland, and Spain. They were defeated in Spain by the Ibris, which is a Gaulish or Gallic name for Hebrew. So you had these Gauls from the northern kingdom fighting against Israelites from the southern kingdom in Spain. And they were defeated. Everybody follow me?
Yeah. It makes
sense. So
basically
you got Israelites fighting Israelites.
Sounds regular to me. Been doing it all this time.
It's part of the prophecy. It's in the scriptures, you know, that we're supposed to have been doing this. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we're doing it today, you know, all day. So it's not hard to believe.
So these group of Gauls remained in Spain and mixed with the Ibers before moving on into Ireland with them, and they became known as Scots.
It became known as what?
They became known as Scots. Now we know that Scotia, along with her sons and their followers, wind up going into Hiberland, and they wind up going into Ireland and Scotland, because Scotland is actually named after her. So now we got a mixture of northern and southern kingdom that went up into Ireland, and they became known as Scots. Another group of Celts and Gauls were also known as Belgae in the northern regions of France. The nation of Wales within Great Britain retained their ancient Celtic language and culture due to a strong degree. Ireland is also known for its retention and popularization of Celtic themes. There is an ancient written language associated with the Celts of Spain, Britain, and Ireland. It is called Ogham and is found inscribed on stone. There are instances of Ogham writings in New England and southwest areas of North America. One inscription in New Mexico gives a version of the Ten Commandments, which is written in Paleo-Hebrew.
So hold on, let's connect this. So you're saying, what are you saying about this writing in New Mexico? Who was the author? We know they're Hebrews, but who are you saying author? Who are we trying to say the author of this writings are?
Well, they didn't say. They just said that this ancient Paleo-Hebrew writing was found, and writings associated with the Celts of Spain, Britain, and Ireland. It's also been found inscribed on stones and writings in New England and the southwest areas of North America. One found in New Mexico, where we know the Paleo writings of the Ten Commandments. That's on the side of a mountain.
Right.
But they're not saying who the authors are.
Are you familiar with the 5 civilized tribes, Native Americans, which was Choctaw, Seminole, Chickasaw, Cherokee? I can't remember the other one. But if guys, you should look that up. And they claim to be of Ephraim as well. Those are 5 civilized tribes only that claim to be of Ephraim. And what's his name? John, what's the guy from the Mormons? I can't think of his name. Supposedly got the tablets from
Smith. John Smith.
John
Smith. You mean Joseph Smith?
Joseph Smith. There it is. He worked on it.
Thanks a lot, Joseph Smith. So, but those are the 5. They called them the 5. Those were the ones who were actual Native Americans of that we call Black Native Americans, actually, and they claim to be of those of Ephraim. When I say Ephraim, I mean those are the northern tribes.
Right.
So just some more information to look into.
You know, when you look at that word, the Galatians or the Gauls, and I want to say Aramaic, it actually means exile. Exiles.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Which is very interesting because that's what exiles of the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a play, that word Galatians. You know, it really was. It's kind of like a play on that word, a play on who. You know, that's who the Galatians were. They were Israelites, basically.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now we can see that the majority of Europe, Western, Central, Southern, Eastern, Northern Europe, were occupied by descendants of the house of Israel and Judah. Now, as we start going to the history of the Roman domination in the Mediterranean area, the history is becoming more complete in detail about our people. The Roman historians documented that different people groups in and out of their spirit influence for many centuries. This continued even after the fall of the Roman Empire by the Holy Roman Empire under the rule of the Catholic Church. We were there. We already have Celts and Gauls in Spain and elsewhere migrating to the British Isles. Celts have been established in the British Isles for over 500 years, and the Roman presence ended in Britain, and Saxon migrations began around 450 A.D. The Saxons, Jutes, Picts, and Angles and Frisians established themselves around the Baltic Sea areas. The original House of Judah were pushed into Wales and northern Scotland by the Anglos and Saxons who established themselves in England. There were another group that migrated into Sweden and Norway, the Vikings, from the area of Germany about 200 years after the birth of the Messiah. They were the Danes and the Norsemen, who generally have been known as the Vikings. They moved towards the northern British Isles around 800 A.D. and eventually attacked and pillaged all the areas of the Isles for the next 200 years. These Norsemen occupied an area of northern France known today as Normandy. In 1066, William the Conqueror and the Normans attacked the east coast of Britain. The famous Battle of Hastings concluded with a Norman victory, which effectively ended Saxon rule. All right, so basically we have Israelites from the northern and southern kingdom that were Vikings, that was settled in Scandinavia. We were in France. I mean, we were all over Europe.
Wow.
There were also people from Japheth's line that was in Europe also. So we can't forget that too.
It's heavy.
But we were primarily the royalty of Europe. We were primarily royalty. And like I said, I haven't even gone into that yet. But I just wanted to give a base foundation of how the northern and southern kingdoms were actually in Europe, had civilizations and settled in Europe before we became a nation of Israel, before the birth of the Messiah, and even after the birth of the Messiah.
So Paul was going up there. Paul knew that these people were Israelites if he were going up to these places.
Right.
And
so all this information, go ahead.
No. So from a history point of view, we are learning that the Europeans, or some of the Europeans, knew and understood that they were Hebrews. King James in them. He kept the Sabbath. He knew he was a Hebrew. He kept the dietary law. And I assumed he wasn't the first to doing it. So it was something that before his birth became a tradition that he grew up in. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, because King James and them follow the Julian calendar, and they believe that the new year began in the spring. They didn't follow the Gregorian calendar, which was ordered by the Catholic Church.
Wow.
They didn't eat pork. They worship on the Sabbath day. They didn't worship on Sunday. So, like I said, that's another topic I'm gonna get into at a later time.
Absolutely.
But all this information was hidden from us by the Edomites. All this was hidden from us.
Now the Edomites, and when you do the research at that time, the Edomites looked like Negroes at that time, right? We're talking about black people. We consider black people.
Yes. And that's how they were able to uproot us out of Europe, because they started to blend it, just like we did during the Maccabees. Times? The Maccabees. How they overthrew us during the Maccabees, right?
Right. A lot of people think during the Maccabees and during Herod's son, Herod, most people think they were Europeans, but these people were black.
No, they were black.
People don't know that.
Herod was
they
black.
Wasn't even high yellow black. Right. Herod was black. These weren't even high yellow black. These were actually, they blended with any average brother walking down the street, but they were Edomites.
Yep. And you're going to see, as I start putting forth more information, you're going to see that these Edomites started mixing their seed. They started using Caucasians as the fall guy, as the one that's taking all the blame for our fall, when it was them that was pulling the strings the whole time, and even pulling the strings to this day. We all focus on the Caucasians and being mad at them when it's actually the Edomites. This is a war between Esau and Jacob. Everything that's going on right now is a war between Esau and Jacob.
Well, the scripture says that Esau hides himself, and he's the master of doing that. Also, it talks about in the prophecy that the Most High will uncover his skirts in his hiding places. So, you know, it just can't be the white man is here invisible. He's not hiding nowhere. So it's got to be somebody who we least, you know, it's like when the curtains pull back, and we probably be looking in the mirror with somebody who looks just like us.
It's going to be somebody that looks like us. It's going to be somebody that looks like them, but it's ultimately going to be it's Esau's hand, you know, and that's what a hunter does. A hunter lies in wait. He doesn't expose himself. You see what I'm saying? Before he kills his prey, the prey never sees the hunter. You see what I'm saying? And this is what they've been doing to us the whole time. Right.
It's heavy. I must say, man, you brought some really new information. I mean, I heard that, you know, we rule England, but I never heard it from a standpoint where you brought it back before we were in England and how we got to England. And this is a missing piece that a lot of Hebrews, see, what I found out, even myself as a Hebrew, that we really didn't understand and know history. And so now, you know, I'm grateful that first of all, it's a brother who go to Zion who's bringing this information out. So I'm grateful for that. But this information is new. I want everybody to research it and to study it, you know what I mean, because it's your history that's been taken from you. And they had us all thinking we came only from Africa, you see, and that's not true. That's not true at all, you see. I mean, we came from Europe, and we don't understand, and it makes sense why they hid this information from us, because that's more recent even than the slaves coming into the Americas. Because we look at when the slaves coming from Africa, when the slaves came in from Africa, most of them went to Brazil. You see what I'm saying?
I believe those numbers are really, really inflated. I believe those numbers are inflated.
I could believe that too. But that's what
I believe they're inflated.
All the slaves came from Africa. You see. And so we have. What about the other? You know, 100. We had 125 years that slavery went on in Brazil before a slave even touched in the Americas. And so now we're finding out there's a whole new slave trade that's coming from Europe and of royalty that's being taken to the Caribbeans, you know, and the Americas.
Now I'm gonna tell you something that's gonna blow you away. Slavery was not legal in England. The Magna Carta outlawed slavery. Slavery didn't become legal in England, Scotland, and Wales and Ireland until King George, which was a king from the Holy Roman Empire, took control of the British throne. That's when they really started this slave trade. That's when they started this harsh bondage, because they got the Scottish House of Wales, the Scottish House of Stuart, off the throne, and the Catholic Church was able to gain control over Britain. And when they gained control over Britain, they initiated that harsh bondage on our people from the west coast of Africa and from Europe, sending us to the New World. That's when that harsh bondage started. It was around the mid to late 1700s.
Can you explain real quick and who are the stewards, if that's Africa?
Well, the stewards were a royal Israelite line that ruled in Britain. So basically, they were a Israelite family from Scotland, and they united the countries of Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and England under one throne, and that's the lineage that King James came from.
Hold on. Yeah, can you mute your mic on Facebook? Okay.
So the stewards are the ones that Cromwell, from saying it right? Cromwell?
Yeah, William Cromwell.
William Cromwell
was a Caucasian. Yeah, he was with the Puritans.
Okay. He was the one that started putting the people under bondage and shipping them out into the Americas, right? He's one of the main characters.
Right. Well, the first people that came to the first black nobility that came to the Americas actually was sent by Cromwell and the Puritans, because these are the people that wanted the House of Stuart back on the throne. They basically overthrew King James's son, which was King Charles I, and they cut his head off. They beheaded him, and then they went up into Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and they made war with the Israelites up there. And that's when they start shipping them off to the New World and stealing their lands and assuming their names. You see, but they were being...
Also, this is why Joshua said that we were prisoners of war.
Right.
Yeah, they were prisoners of war. They were rebels. They sent them off. I'll bring that out in another teacher. I'll bring that out in another teaching where they issue all these decrees and stuff, and they stole their lands, just like they do today. They was taking our women. They were cutting the babies out of the stomachs. They was burning them alive. They were hanging them. They were lynching them. They were doing all this stuff.
So even today, before your child is born, your child is a prisoner of war. We are prisoners of wars. And Ephraim, you and I were talking about this when what happened in Louisiana, the Hurricane Katrina. And I love the fact that the media was calling these black Americans who felt, I've been here for 300 years. They were calling, if anyone remember this, they were calling us refugees.
Yeah. They just called us refugees in Houston during the flood. They called us refugees.
That's a perfect name, because that's who we are. And you had another you had another group of black folks was getting upset. So why are you calling these people refugees? They didn't even understand that we are considered prisoners of war.
Right.
We were kicked out of our own home. It all makes sense now.
Yeah. Because in all reality, you can't honestly say if your forefathers came from the west coast of Africa or from Europe. You can't say. You don't know. You don't know. You could have came either or.
Right. But now what we're seeing is that Israel and Judah are serving in a captivity together right now. That's what that's proving.
Right.
Because
the curses are applying to both of us.
Right. And because throughout history, we never served in any captivity together besides Egypt. Now you're seeing us serve in the captivity together. That's heavy.
Together.
And it makes sense when brothers do their DNA, they get Ireland coming up, or they get Wales coming up in the lines. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because that's what I did my DNA. And my DNA, I had west coast of Africa, but I also had Ireland, Scotland. Matter of fact, I had the northern coast of France, and I had some Scandinavian in there. Now, that was deep. Now I understand why. You know what I'm saying? I got pissed off at first, but now I understand why.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're using the markers from these old graves where these Negroes are laying in the graves.
Right.
And then matching it up to us. And these and the Europeans that's from these places thinking that it's talking about them, and well, in fact, it's talking about us.
Right. Yeah, it's talking about us. They think they're talking about them. They don't even know. I mean, they are a victim of this whitewashing and Esau.
Right. Victim.
doing this to them also. They're claiming the history of another people. That's why I understand what Scripture said when they said our father inherited lies.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because they inherited a whole bunch of lies. I mean, really, other than the Volscov Empire, and that's this empire where these Scythians, I believe the Scythians and these Khazarians actually went in after they sacked Rome. They settled in southern France. That's the only time they really had an empire outside of the Khazarian Empire. Now, and then they were destroyed by the Muslims, by the Moors. I'm sorry.
Right.
Well, I do want to say this for the audience. I do want to say this, is that the Scripture plainly, you get a lot of brothers always blaming the white man, and he has this part, but the Most High didn't blame the white man. The Most High blamed one person. When you go to Joel 3, he tells you who done it to you. And he goes right back to your homeland, which were the Palestinians. So if anybody got a beef, you need to be beefing. Now, he didn't say going to the Jewish people. He didn't even say going to the Danites. He said them Palestinians. And when you understand who they are, they're still in this land today. I see them. I deal with them. They claim to be heirs. These are Amaleks. This is Amalek, and they're controlling the land right now from Palestine. They're the ones you see throwing rocks. If you want to beef with anybody, go to the place where the Most High said you're supposed to go. Who did it to you? Does that make sense?
Yeah. He didn't say a new one on me. I didn't know that.
Well, he didn't say go to the Jewish people. He didn't say go out to the white men in America. He said, hey, this who did it to you. And he said they got my gold in their temples, which is called Mas or Masjid today. Palestine. So you can read that in Joel. So I just want to really bring that out. You know what I mean? Because all this what we're seeing has been Esau, Amalek, who's been behind the scenes.
So all that contention then over the, with the Temple Mount, the so-called Temple Mount up there, is that Amalek then?
That's Amalek. Absolutely. That's Amalek fighting with Japheth. And also some of Edom. So you got Edom against Edom, because Scripture says brother should be against thy brother. But you got Edom, you got some Edomites who are Jewish, and then you got some Edomites, or most Edomites who are Japheth, claiming to be Arabs, which are Palestinians. You see what I'm saying? And those Edomites that are Palestinians are going against Japheth and Edomites and other nations, Cushites who claim to be Jewish people. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And the Edomites are the same people who've been in this land. They never left the land because they the ones after they got us out of here. So the Most High again says in Joel 3, he's telling us, you can't find it nowhere in other Scriptures besides in Joel 3, he's telling this who did it to you. Then he said he sold you to the Grecians. He said he sold you to the Grecians. So why get mad at the Grecians? Which are the Romans, or some of the Romans, right? It's the Palestinians. So all the brothers who's tough want to get out and find and get at somebody. You need to be coming over here in Palestine getting at them, not the Jewish people.
Wow.
They call themselves Arabs today, and they're not even fit for that title because the true Arabs were Negroes, were black.
Right.
You see. So, anybody got any questions for Ephraim? I hope everyone enjoyed this. It's been a lot of information that he's put out here, and but do anybody got any questions for him?
And I know this is kind of a shock to the system because all these names I threw out there tonight are names that we normally believe to be Caucasian names that they call themselves, but there's actually, our brethren. So, I'll just tell you, go do the research, go look this up. But understand when you go look it up, you're going to be looking at it through their eyes. So you're going to have to dig through the information in order to pick it out. You know, be thinking it's talking about them every time. Every picture that you see is going to be pictures of them, but it's actually not them.
Ephraim, can you explain why we don't? What happened to the who is whitewashing this? Did it start off with Cromwell? Well, is he one of the main characters that was destroying and whitewashing a lot of our images?
Well, one of Cromwell's ancestors that was working for King Henry VIII. I don't know if anybody heard of this brother, who was a king of England. He was the one that had all the wives and was seen eating a big chicken leg and all that stuff like that. Where actually, you know, this guy went in and he pretty much made war with a lot of the other Israelite nobility, destroying their paintings, destroying their sculptures, and he destroyed 97% of the black Israelite nobility paintings and sculptures. And that's why you don't hardly see that many images of black nobility from England anymore, because he destroyed just about all of them, and he was a Caucasian. I hate to say he was a Caucasian. I believe that he was an Edomite. I believe he was a mulatto Edomite. But King Henry VIII, who was an Israelite, was an evil Israelite, man. He was a bad dude. But he was the one that started the Protestant movement against the Catholic Church. He broke England away from the Catholic Church.
Well.
Anybody got anything? Any questions for me? I appreciate everybody's time. I think the next thing I'm going to bring out is Edom and Rome, and then the fall of the Roman Empire, and then the build up to the Holy Roman Empire and the Catholic Church, because we were in a Christian church too.
So can you